Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. No idea how well this is working. We're doing the rare triple stream. Apparently, the Big Bear and John Delarose are also currently streaming on unauthorized. So we'll see how well the system holds up. However, I am told that audio is good and video is good. This is going to be a pretty specific stream, possibly not a terribly long one, but I think it's very exciting for one particular reason, and allow me to demonstrate. Those of you who are familiar with the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, published by Castalia Library, will probably recognize this particular book. What you may not recognize is that this particular book is in black cowhide leather. And so you might say, well, wait a minute. The cowhide version is purple and the Libraria version is done in dark red goat skin. So what is this black thing? Well, this is one of our first and one of the first 20 or so test bindings produced at the Castalia Bindery. It's not perfect. It's good, recognizable, right? Got the end papers. Casing in is nice. Even has the gold ribbon. No gilding, obviously, but we knew it wasn't going to have any gilding. We're still working, as you can see, on the stamping. The spine stamping is not quite accurate, so that needs a little bit of work. It's off a little bit, about a millimeter to one side, and but the interiors are flawless, and there's even the tail banding. Let me see, you can't really see it there. Let me get the ribbon out of the way. You can see there's even the gold tail banding right there, and you can also see how nicely it's rounded and backed. So so it still needs some work. Also, as you can see from this, although it does have the proper curves at the top and bottom, no hubbing yet, no bands. And that's going to take a little while longer because the first attempt at creating the bands, it just doesn't work. Sufficient to what we want to see. This is actually an example of the current system. It's not bad. It actually looks an awful lot like the current bands on our system, but we want to do something that's more akin to the Franklin Library bands. This is actually an earlier test when we're just stamping things. This is actually a goat skin version. This has been stamped multiple times. Interestingly enough, both of these were spot on. But you know, the in this case, you can't really see it on the video, but the casing is not. This is before they'd perfected the casing measurements, and so it's a little bit off. Not that you can probably tell, but work in progress, exactly. But you know, this is a really big deal. That, you know, we now officially have a place that is capable of binding large quantities of leather books, and in fact, I'm very pleased to be able to announce that the Castalia Bindery already has its first order, and we are currently putting together our approach to produce several thousand books, not for us, but for another publisher. And, so this is going to be interesting. Definitely a real challenge, but the good news is that, we're already operating, we're still in the training phase. We're not even in the experiment and, practice phase. We're still just in the training phase with the experts. And so they're actually quite pleased. There's also a very mild, very minor problem with the ribbon cutting machine. For some reason, we only have the one that does the small. It has the attachment that only does the small ribbons up to 6 millimeters wide. This is a little bit wider than we normally do, but we were testing the bigger ribbons that we could get our hands on. So, if you're thinking about the fact that there's 16 machines involved, one we determined that we don't really need, and that 2 of them need adjustment, that's pretty good. It's pretty good considering that nobody has done anything like this in at least 20 or 30 years. So we're getting there. So I'll be interested to give you an update once, the next update I hope to be able to give you is to report on the ribbon and the foiling being done accurately. The next step after that will be getting the hubs done. Now, we don't need to do the hubs for a new client. They don't want them. But we need to get that, work that out in order before we can start thinking about doing the Iliad and the Odyssey. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. But this is already a very high quality leather book. Not where we're going to be yet, but we're getting there. Eric says, very impressive for a first showing. Yeah, I think so. Another thing that we're going to be able to do is we've been sourcing a number of different types of leather. We've got some new cowhide coming in. We've got some calf skin coming in. We've got some bison coming in. And so now that we have our own bindery, we can bind the books in the different leather. And if we find better leather and it tests to our satisfaction, then we can bring it to the traditional library books that are produced in the States. So there's really a lot of side benefit that is already beginning to show itself, even though the bindery is, only been semi-operational for 4 days, so 5 days maybe. On the subject of books, I should like to point out that tomorrow is the last day to subscribe to Castalia History. And that is, of course, Landmark Thucydides. We've got over 400 subscribers already. And so we are hoping to get these into production relatively soon. And we will be announcing the second book on July 1st. Coffee Grounds Bear said, would it be possible to singe the edge of the ribbon so it doesn't fray over time? I don't know. Obviously, Easton and Franklin don't do it. They probably don't do it for a reason. I don't know if there's some, we can look into it, but, and it might be possible that there's some sort of heat related cutting machine that we can find that might do that, but that's probably not going to be our immediate priority. Nate says, having a bison leather book has never even crossed my mind. Now I want one. We don't know if it'll work. You know, I just talked to the folks yesterday. They think it's possible, but what they think it's possible, eh, not necessarily, not necessarily sure about that. Um, you know, they were just says use Freycheck CEB on your own. Oh, use Freycheck on your. Well, the thing is that we'll look into it, but um, you don't want to have people waving live flame around in a bindery where there's all kinds of leather and paper and all that sort of thing. So um, using the word singe in relation to the bindery is really not something that sounds like anything that we want to do. And like I said, if Franklin doesn't do it, if Easton doesn't do it, there's probably a good reason for it. One of the things we've found, in fact, we've had to become a little bit less cocky about our approach with things because some of the things that we thought we could easily do better, then, we're beginning to understand why the US bindery does certain things that appear to be suboptimal. But once you're actually doing things in sufficient numbers, you begin to understand, okay, maybe you can't get the absolute top quality that way, but maybe they do it in order to reduce the possibility of significant errors. So, but we've the thing that's really cool is that we wanted to bring back the concept of skiving the leather. Easton doesn't do that, but Franklin did. We knew Franklin did, and so we bought a machine for that. But the problem was the experts thought that it was going to take 4 minutes per book to do that, which you can't do thousands of books if you're going to spend that much time on one single step that is fundamentally optional. The market leader doesn't even do, right? But what was great was that one of our own guys, not one of the experts, figured out that, well, if we do this and we just do that, it only takes 15 seconds. Okay. So it was kind of fascinating to then take a Franklin Library book apart and discover that they were using precisely the same technique that we had independently developed. So that's really encouraging to find out that some of the new techniques that we are developing are actually older techniques that were best practices that were later abandoned. So I thought that was it's a small thing perhaps, but it turned out to be the best way to help us get the books to case in properly. Makes sense. If you step back and look at it, well, yeah, it makes sense that doing things the way the highest quality producer did them is going to have good results. So that's good. Dan says, reinventing a superior wheel. Inquisitor Bear is rightfully horrified. You took apart a leather book? I hope it wasn't anything good. They were actually pretty attractive books, but I always focus on taking apart. If we have to take them apart, which we did, we take apart like the poetry volumes, and we will put them back together. So we're uniquely well suited to do so. But because our initial approach on the banding was unsuccessful, um, to be honest, I was, well, to be honest, I was a little irritated that they hadn't been taken apart before. I mean, I was thinking, why did you think I sent you the books if I didn't want you to take them apart and look at them? You know, and so it's not surprising that, and as it turned out, the techniques that had been used for that were different than the experts thought. So, but the interesting thing is, as it turns out, there's a decent chance that the new approach we're going to try is actually going to be more effective, not only in terms of the end result, but in terms of the process. It's probably going to be more efficient than the original approach was ever going to be, even if it had worked. So, just one step at a time. I mean, this is one reason why I haven't been streaming and stuff. We've just been working on books and bindery and supplies and tools and all that sort of stuff pretty much nonstop. I'm hoping that maybe next week we can do a little tour of the bindery, possibly not live, but at least I can bring the camera, show you some of the stuff, explain some of the stuff, and so forth. But like I said, to get back to the landmark stuff, if you're interested in the Castelli history subscription, I highly recommend that you subscribe tonight, tomorrow, do the catch-ups, and then you'll be in line to get the first book in the series, which eventually most people who are involved with the series are going to want, right? And also, I should mention that we're finally getting our act together on the shipping. So those of you who have purchased The Golden Age, the excellent first book in John C. Wright's trilogy, that is now being printed, should be going out this weekend to our shipping agent, and he'll be getting it out to everyone next week. So we're getting there. It's kind of funny because we've been dealing with leather so much that like the hardcover just seems a little bit like odd now. But wait, it has color and pictures on it. But anyhow, this is all really important because some of you may be aware that a small publisher just shut down yesterday. A number of other small publishers of our acquaintance have shut down in the last year. I was talking to a European publisher, and he said that books in France have the book sales have declined by 40%, and that's almost entirely the result of Amazon. Amazon has gone from being a middleman, being able to sell books. I found out that Amazon is now the single biggest purchaser of print-on-demand printers. And what they're planning to do is they're planning to essentially try to replace all the publishers. And especially with regards to public demand stuff, they've always disfavored publishers selling public demand or public domain books on their site. They pay 70% on a regular book sale, but they only pay 35% on a public domain text. Well, my guess is they're going to stop carrying public domain books except for those they print themselves. And so, this is a warning that Amazon is attempting to completely take over what people are permitted to read. We already know how the algorithm favors certain authors and disfavors other ones. You know, I mean, I've said this, and it's not sour grapes. Remember, I have personally benefited significantly from the A9 algorithm deciding that it was going to push a Throne of Bones audiobook on everybody for 1 month. We sold 25,000 copies of A Throne of Bones, the audiobook, in 1 month. And then, boom, the next month, right back down to the usual run rate of 200 or so per month. So it's not sour grapes that I'm observing these things. But we are not going to be part of that. We are building up our own direct distribution. We've got 2 different shipping agents in the US. We're working on one in Europe. We have another potential one in Australia. We still have to work out the best way to deal with it, the best way to cover the higher shipping costs to Europe and to Australia and so forth. But the point is, Amazon, we can use it as a backup. We can use it as a way for people that we can't deliver to directly to acquire stuff. Or Eric says he got a copy of The Golden Age from Oral Fuseli. So, you can still go through existing bookstores if you're one of the very, very small percentage of people who still do that, right? But becoming dependent upon Amazon will be absolutely fatal for any publisher and for any independent author who is trying to continue the business that they were doing with Amazon 3 or 4 years ago. Amazon decided it did not want to do that because Amazon wants to control everything. And so the fact that they're building the biggest print-on-demand system in the world is a really, really bad sign, because they already control the digital market, the electronic market. Now they're attempting to control the physical market. Glass Darkly sends the first super chat. Thank you. He says, thank you for doing Castalia Library, and the history series looks like very good timing. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm glad. The history series is actually bigger, quicker than the original library series was. And so, we're also going to be, I can tell you right now that we're going to do it. How we're going to do it, I don't know. But we are going to do a low cost, some sort of low cost subscription based around the bindery. And what exactly it will be, I don't know. I don't know whether there'll be one that'll be comics or one that'll be books, whether there'll be a mix, but or how often the books will go out. But my goal is I want to do a low cost subscription that's a maximum of $25 a month, and ideally even a bit less. It's just a question really of like how many months per book and that sort of thing. And that's something that we'll discuss. I'm not asking for opinions right now because I don't know what the numbers are yet. I know that we can, we want to have basically a introductory leather line. It's not going to have some of the bells and whistles. Probably it's not going to have the hubs. It's not going to have the gilding, but it's still going to be quality, good-looking leather. But we want to make it accessible to people who otherwise can't collect books of this sort. So, and that's where some of the experiment with the calf skin and the other more or less esoteric types of leather can come in. One thing that's really interesting, by the way, is that the old school people all talk about how good the old pigskin books look. What I thought was kind of fascinating is they don't do it anymore. And it appears that they stopped doing it right around the time that they were purchased by a financial company. So I don't know if it doesn't strike me as a price thing as far as I can tell. It's definitely not a quality thing, because I'm told that the old pigskin approach is actually more attractive. So you wonder if there might be some sort of religious angle involved in not utilizing pigskin. I don't know, but it's the more you learn, right? Jay Belis says, I support Archhaven Comics, Castalia Library, Castalia History, and Biblio.com for old and new books, as they support small bookstores. So Biblio.com is possibly worth looking into. Carlos also says, not kosher. Yeah, wouldn't it be interesting if that's the real reason that pigskin is no longer appearing in as book covers? Anyhow, well, JB, let's thank you. We appreciate the support, and I'll to encourage people to check out Biblio.com if they are supporting the small bookstores. The thing is that Amazon is going to look like it's going to take over the book world, but it's not going to be able to, because they're going to go too far. They've already gone too far repeatedly. And so, what it means is that they're going to corner the market on the fast food. They're going to corner the market on the all you can eat, all you can read buffet style readers. But you're not going to get quality books out of it. Although you might get good public domain books out of it, but only the public domain books they're willing to let you buy. I'm pretty sure there's going to be plenty of books that mysteriously are going to go missing from that system, because ultimately the corpocracy is all about control. Anyhow, they'll have all the romance vampire novels and the harem novels, and the terrible science fiction. But all right, on that note, I wish you all a good evening. If you haven't subscribed to Castalia History yet, I encourage you to do so. And otherwise, I will be back probably Monday with a regular stream. I think it's probably time for us to get back to the meme reviews. Don't start sending the memes yet, but I look on the blog and on Social Galactic for when you can start sending the memes in. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.